really all that good. If that's how they react tomorrow morning, we may see a major dip this weekend as kids are like, oh, it's not cool to see Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Yeah.
If the kids dug it, even if nobody else dug it, if on the whole the kids had a good time, then yeah, the word of mouth will spread and the kids will go and see it next weekend as well. So it's really... I'm really curious to see how big of a drop it has next weekend, to see that's really going to tell us whether or not we will see another Percy Jackson film. If it doesn't have much of a drop at all, if it stays within the $20 to $30 million range, we could definitely be seeing a Percy Jackson film. I've seen that it's already slated. They've already kind of announced that they're making, I think it's called Sea of Monsters next.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean anything.
Well, yeah, they've got all kind of stuff planned, and those things never get done. I mean, the movie's not going to be in the $30 million range. It's going to. I doubt if it will barely even make the $20 million that it could possibly make had it been a better film. But that's going to be the biggest thing to see, especially with this movie having no real competition for its audience that next weekend. Yeah, if the movie drops major, then. Yeah, I doubt if you will see a sequel, but who knows? Who knows? I actually like the concept of this movie. But see, here's the deal, man. Everybody wants the next Harry Potter, but all these series that they're pulling from, it is not the phenomena that Harry Potter is. I mean, Percy Jackson, I can guarantee you not everybody has heard about Percy Jackson the way everybody knows who Harry Potter is. So you can't keep picking these films hoping that lightning is going to strike twice with that series.
Well, but what you have to keep in mind is that they're not just thinking in terms of Harry Potter. They're thinking in terms of Lord of the Rings. They're thinking Harry Potter isn't the only one to do this. And Lord of the Rings, despite having longevity on the shelves, hasn't sold the kind of numbers that Harry Potter did. I mean,
well, they're also looking at. I mean, you say
each of these books is 60 to 70 million dollars, or 60 to 70 million copies worldwide.
Well, even something like you say Lord of the Rings. I would actually say they're trying to repeat the business of something like the Chronicles of Narnia, which. Was a very, at least the first movie was a huge success for Disney at the time, and I think these movies actually want to kind of, if not Harry Potter business, they want to do Narnia business, and these movies, these books aren't even as big or well known as something like Narnia. I mean, Narnia is known by generation upon generation. A lot of these books that are coming out right now, they really have a very specific audience, and they don't even have the cross appeal of something like Harry Potter or even Narnia. So.
Right. All I'm saying is that Harry Potter isn't the only one that's profited huge, and so somebody's going to point out, well, it doesn't have to be as big as Harry Potter. Look at Lord of the Rings, and of course, look at Narnia. Of course, those had generations where the parents. I mean, my mother gave me a copy of The Hobbit when I was in third grade, and she's like, I read this growing up. I want you to read this growing up. So,
yeah. I
mean. My mother was really excited. My father hadn't even read the books and didn't even know what the Lord of the Rings movies were. And here's my mother, this very middle America Fox watching housewife who's like, we have to go to the Lord of the Rings movies. I loved those books when I was a little girl. So, no, you're right. You don't have that same kind of they don't have that wild success, but something like Percy Jackson and the Olympians did have a large following. And so that these guys sitting at Fox have kind of pointed out, well, it's not only Harry Potter, it's this, this, and this. So this is doing well. We think this might be able to carry it. But I agree with you overall. I think that I think that they keep pulling from series hoping to win, but they keep making the mistakes that other series make. The reason why Lord of the Rings was so huge was because Peter Jackson is brilliant and made brilliant movies. And in fact, they did not count on those films doing well. They did not give Peter the budget for his final budget for doing post-production on the second two films until after the opening weekend of the Fellowship of the Ring. Well, it was the Fellowship of the Ring success that was hinging on whether or not we would get good special effects in the last two movies or shitty special effects.
Well, the Lord of the Rings series is just a different animal upon itself too.
Sure.
I mean, that's a different kind of audience. I mean, it's known by everybody. I mean, that movie it already was well drenched in our culture. I mean, we had generations of people who knew it. I mean, it just went outside that fantasy realm of audiences too. I mean, you had Leonard Nimoy writing a song about Bilbo Baggins. People grew up with the Rankin Bass Hobbit film. I mean, people remember Ralph Bakshi's The Lord of the Rings. I mean,
Sure.
you know, what do you have it? What do you call him? Robert Plant and what was the name of that band? Jesus. Led Zeppelin is writing songs about, you know, Mordor and I mean, it's like everybody knows Lord of the Rings. So I'd had generations upon generations upon generations of audiences built in who've been waiting for years and years for a big budget version of those books.
Sure, but that didn't have to. Those movies did well because they continued to do well, not just because they opened well. And what I'm getting at is the problem we're seeing here with a number of these other films like Aragon and Percy Jackson and The Secret of the Dark is Rising, is that not that the series they're drawing from are particularly bad because they have their followings, but that the movies themselves have been given to people and deprived of the kind of budgets they need, that you end up with these guys who are not great filmmakers without the budgets that you'd need to lavish on a film, like with the Chronicles of Narnia. I don't believe that director is incredible, and I'm blanking on his name at the moment. I don't believe he is an incredibly talented or visionary director, but Disney gave him everything he needed to make that film, which is why that film looked pretty and why it appealed to people. And they did have a strong enough story to carry it through, even in the goofy moments, like when Santa shows up and such like that. But the movie overall worked, and the problem with these films is they're not working. And like Percy Jackson doesn't work.
Well, I just look at something like the Golden Compass, which was a very controversial series of books, as well as a series of books that appealed to a certain audience, and it had a good director. I mean, was it Paul Weiss, the director of About a Boy,
and the director of New Moon?
Yeah, well, that's way down the line, but he also did American Pie. You know, let's not forget that. But I mean, I'm looking at it's just that. I'm one of those people who was not the biggest fan of American Pie.
I don't like American Pie.
Yeah, but you know, I look at that movie and I'm just like, you know, for a book, I'm sure that this works, but for a movie, I just don't see any wide appeal with this. I really think that was unless they, right, you know, given to a skilled enough screenwriter and director, it might have worked, but for the most part, I just did not see that book working as a movie to get the business that they kind of wanted.
Me and Leon sat down, and he explained to me how the book ended, and he explained that this film actually leaves out a major antagonist. And one of the things this movie lacked was a real antagonist. That was one of the problems I had with the film. Was it? You
talking about Percy Jackson?
Yeah. It was a quest movie to a certain extent, where he's given this quest to run around and collect these 3 pearls so that he can go to hell and save his mother. And it's just an excuse to get him in strange situations that cause him peril, and he has to get out of it. And in the movie, or I'm sorry, in the book, apparently Ares, the god of war, plays a big part and is constantly messing with him and throwing him off track and getting in his way, and serves as a red herring for what's really going on in the story. But completely lacking that, this movie's just so transparent, and when everything happens, it just feels too cheap and easy. And it's clearly one of those situations where the screenwriter and the director being Chris Columbus, they didn't tell a good story. They took the worst possible elements and highlighted those to make this movie, and didn't tell the kind of movie that the book really could have led.
Yeah, they made one of those major mistakes of there was so much story there, and they had to take out some things, but instead of taking out the things that really helped the story, they took out the things that instead would push the action and make the movie go faster. And that's why you got a really bad story, which is why, you know what, I thought some things were really cool in the movie. I love the effects with some of the monsters in the film. Not all of them, but most of them. I was like, you know, this is actually pretty cool. It's a shame it's not a better film. So I hope that if they move on to make a second film, it is one of those situations where they say, you know what, we probably could have done better money-wise and critically if we had done this. Let's not make that mistake with this second film. let's make this a real, true film. And maybe they'll do what they did with Harry Potter. Maybe they'll get another director.
Yeah, maybe they'll dump Chris Columbus and get somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, like what was his name? Alfonso Cuarón, who did my favorite film in the Harry Potter series, the third one.
Me too.
Yeah.
Prisoner of Azkaban is the best, hands down, of the series.
Yeah.
I know we're in the minority. A lot of Harry Potter fans really strongly dislike that one.
Why?
Why? Because they feel that it left out too much stuff. The thing is that was the Harry Potter movie for people who haven't read Harry Potter. That if you have not read the Harry Potter books, that's the one where you watch it, and he made a real cohesive film where the only things he left out were the superfluous things that fans wanted, but that were unnecessary to tell a really great classic story.
Yeah, see, I remember when I saw that movie, it was like the third film, and I was like, wow, that was such a departure from the first two movies. And not only was this like a really great Harry Potter movie, I remember that year where I was like, this is like one of the best movies I've seen this year. That's amazing what they've done. If they can keep along this track with the rest of these films, this is going to be a great ride. But so, who knows? Some of these movies, I really root for them, and I just hope that they get better if they give it another chance. So anyway, man, in some other news, they threw your man off a plane.
Oh, Kevin Smith, yeah, he's a little pissed right now.
Yeah, I remember reading that story, and I was like, first, okay, if you haven't heard the story, people, I'm sure you'll tell me a few things and details, Carlisle, but the story is that Kevin Smith was on a plane, and he was going back to California, and he was going on Southwest, and the captain came up and asked him to leave the flight or leave the plane before they took off because Kevin Smith, basically was too fat. Now, normally Kevin Smith, when he rides a plane, he said this himself, he'll buy 2 seats because he knows he's a big guy. But I guess he was on standby for this plane. They put him in 1 seat, and he was considered a risk because he was too heavy. So they asked him to be removed from the plane. And so he's like really pissed off, writing all kind of tweets about it. And my question is, why the fuck was he riding Southwest? And I don't know any better. So when I think about directors and famous people, I think about them riding first class on some really posh airline. And Southwest, as we know, that's the cheap peanut flight.
Well, Southwest is the Greyhound of the skies. I mean, they cut back on a lot of the amenities, and they have. I ended up flying on them, and you know what? To be perfectly honest, I'm really torn on this. This is one of those things where it's easy to make jokes about this, and I don't think it's a really good – I'm not really a fan of making jokes of this kind of situation because there is a certain indignity to how he was treated, but at the same time, I rode on Southwest recently, and I ended up getting sat next to a morbidly obese person. I had I had checked in online – and gotten myself a window seat because I like a window seat. And then this person who is morbidly obese comes in and sits down and is literally the fat of their stomach is coming over the armrest onto my leg. Literally. I mean, I could not work, and the person would not make eye contact with me because she knew what she was doing, and it was the most uncomfortable I have been on a flight ever, and at the same time, I was